How's it going? My name's Enrique, and I'm your host, and you're watching the XR Space.
Hello, and I am Ulysses, and I am your host, and you are watching the XR Space.
Yo, what's going on, man?
It's going really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So are you going to tell the people a little bit about what this show is going to be about?
Yes. I definitely look forward to doing the show. It's supposed to be more laid back, not interview style, but we did say we were going to do a little bit interview. I don't want to give too much of the structure away. I definitely want the people to keep coming back and tuning in. And the structure might change throughout the show. You know, like it's not going to stay consistent.
Yeah, I think with every new person, I think there's going to be something different, something we can switch around because it's a bunch of different creatives, artists, people in the media business. You know, we could always find something else differently to do, whether it's with videos, photos, music, because it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. No, yeah, and I definitely want to continue to invite more creatives like ourselves, whether it be photographers, like you said, people in media, videographers, and really get to, you know, be a sort of a pillar or a lighthouse in the community of creatives, especially here in Chicago. So we'll be touching not only on creatives, but the community in Chicago and what it's like to be a creator in Chicago, right? But this isn't your first rodeo, is it? You've been on a podcast before.
I've helped with the podcast before, and I've been in a podcast before, but it wasn't really...
Yeah.
It wasn't my everyday thing, you know. Other people ran it. I was just there for some face sometimes. I showed face. That was about it.
Yeah. I happened to see, for those of you who don't know, you were on a show called Radio Rejects.
Correct. Yeah, that was with my two friends, Sabby and Lou. It was pretty fun, you know. They brought in a lot of creatives, and they brought in a lot of things to show us. So, you know, there was always something to look forward to in the creative space, and there was always different people, and you know, I got to see a lot of different things, so it was fun.
Where was the actual production held?
It was done in my friend Lou's basement.
Basement, right?
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah. No, yeah, and likewise, I used to do a show. It wasn't more so a podcast setup, although we did do podcasts in the city. It was in our living room. A lot of times we would either change it to our dining room or from our living room. And then sometimes we'd bring our dining room, furniture and put it into the living room and just to change things up for different clients. And yeah, this isn't, again, my first rodeo either. We have clients here in the studio that we do podcasts for, whether they be real estate agents, loan officers, doctors, lawyers, whatever the case may be. So
now it's like all come full circle. So now we have this high-end equipment.
Right.
As you can see, we have this studio behind us, and it's like this is kind of like the podcast dream in a sense.
Yeah.
Where everyone like wants to achieve one day. And I feel like I just started this, and I'm like I didn't have to do anything. These guys set everything up for me, so it was real nice and cool. But you don't have to have all this fancy stuff to start a podcast at all.
No. All it takes is a simple mic and your phone, honestly. I've seen numerous people do it on their phones. But I found, you know, doing the podcast on my end, you know, in the space before I was doing it with clients, when I was trying to run my own show with my wife, it was called Mixed Media. We wanted to talk about comics because that's what I read. She read mangas. She painted. I photographed. So we wanted to just talk about art in general. And switching the cameras and making sure your audio is clean and trying to be a host and run a show, also invite a guest, that's multitasking to like the next level. So it was absolutely horrendous. I don't recommend. If you guys can build a team, I think you don't, like Ulysses said, you don't need the fancy cameras, you don't need the fancy equipment, but what you do need is a team. You need some help.
You need some help.
You can't do it by yourself.
Yeah, everything by yourself is tough.
No, yeah, absolutely.
You need someone to do it for you, like this guy did it for me today.
No, not necessarily. I mean, it's definitely a team effort because, you know, I believe one person can do it, especially if it's like the production side. Is it ideal? No. It's always best to have someone monitoring audio, the other person switching, making sure that you have a production assistant on set checking the cameras, or if the guests need anything, you know, the more people on set, obviously, it's going to be the better. But no, yeah, likewise, I had tripods. I had ACSP, like crop sensor camera. I had crop sensor cameras, tripods. Everything was hardwired. I didn't have any transmission, anything like this. Definitely didn't have a space like this. Nowhere near. But yeah, things, like you said, it comes full circle. I'm really happy to be in this position. Starting off the new year right, this feels good because I'm sort of used to being a little bit in front of the camera, but also like being on a
Same here.
show.
I don't think I ever fully got accustomed to being in front of the camera.
No?
But since I had a YouTube before and I was opening up cards, and now
Likewise.
I've always done I've done video game like YouTube here and there.
Right.
So I had to start being a little more active and
In front of the camera.
in front of the camera and trying to get some people's attention instead of me just screaming into the mic how much I hate the game. Or
True. No, and I did that too. We at one point, my friend Marino and I, we were doing like quit playing during the pandemic. We weren't doing anything but playing video games, and we thought, let's be productive while we play video games.
Yeah.
And that's when the sort of podcast sort of came about. We were doing live streams and stuff like that. We had separate mics, which were pretty cool. They were more so for like events. They were nothing fancy like this. But I also started vlogs. I jumped on that trend, especially when Casey Neistat was at his absolute peak, So I'm used to being in front of the camera. I'm used to editing my own voice, seeing myself. Although I never thought it was ideal, nor did I want to be. It was just something that I knew I was going to have to do sooner or later, And I thought, you know what? In the studio, since we're doing podcasts for all these clients, how do we not have a podcast ourselves?
Of our own, yeah.
Of our own, right.
It's a lot. I think it's more productive on our end that we get to bring in these other creatives. Because who are we bringing in? We're bringing in videographers.
Yep.
We're bringing in photographers, editors. So,
Yep.
I mean, that goes
Hopefully,
in conjunction with the photographers and videographers.
Right.
But there are some people that just do editing. And some people that just do filming for certain projects,
Right. No, hopefully some drone pilots.
Drone pilots would be cool.
Yeah. We definitely have a list of people, a roster. And I'm super excited for this season. A lot of good things to come, a lot of great people to interview. To talk a little bit about the format. So we are going to do some deep dive questions, more of like a investigative questions, interview style.
Sort of like, a Sean Evans Hot Ones, where he's really doing his research, or his team is at least. I'm pretty sure he does as well, because there's no way he...
he doesn't, right.
He comes up there super confident. That's what I like about him, He's up there, He's ready for the next question right after they're done eating some spicy ass wings. He's like, let's keep it rolling.
Taking that spicy ass bite and then like, all right, next question.
Next question. And it's really nice. So it'll be nice to, do our research as well and come up with these questions and do research on stuff that we've never seen before, possibly. And we'll also learn on our end, and hopefully we can add that, value into our everyday lives. So it'd be something really nice. Yeah,
absolutely. And a different segment that I wanted to have on the show is similar to Hot Ones, where we're challenging the guests to do something, right?
Yeah.
Again, the format's not going to stay the same every time, but we definitely want to be consistent in that format where, we are challenging our guests, not just with the questions, but a task on the show. And I feel like that's fun for anyone. People, I know there's not a large demographic that's watching Wheel of Fortune or Family Feud, but there's still an audience. And it's fun because that's what Hot Ones is doing. They're taking some advantage of, the guests being challenged not just by the spice of the wings, but the questions, because they're so intricate.
They're so intricate, yeah.
But it's funny you mentioned Sean Evans. I actually thought the investigative questions would be more so like Nardwuar. Have you watched Nardwuar?
Oh, yeah, Nardwuar.
I love the way he does his interviews. He's so unique. He's really out there, but I love that he's sort of playing with the guests. Although they are very deep dive questions, they're like, how'd you know that?
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Who told you this?
You know too much.
Someone told them. Someone told them.
Right. And I think that's what excites me is being a little bit investigative, doing a little bit more research on the person, because ultimately what we want to do with the show is bring a spotlight on those creatives and have them, bring their opinions and some of their ideas about the community of creatives in Chicago and how we can better it, and likewise, I think we as well should speak on some of those, challenges and ideas that we have.
Because there's millions of people in Chicago, and then there's probably hundreds of thousands, maybe thousands of creators.
Yeah.
I only know about a few hundred. So, it'd be nice to, know who these people know. Where do they get their influences from? And what what do they find like positivity in their work and how they want to expand, or what their certain field of work is, and how they apply that to like everyday life. You know, like people who are in the creative space, they got to keep on working, and they got to keep learning to keep going on, because it's something that doesn't stop, you know.
Right.
As you know, like videographers are constantly learning new effects,
Right.
They had to find the newest camera, newest equipment. If you want to keep it advancing, of course, any equipment's as good as it gets. You just have to know your basics really, and then and then keep going from there.
Yeah, honestly, it really comes down to like knowing the basics isn't enough. You have to have some sort of stamp, a signature that if someone sees the video, they'd be like, "Oh, hey, Ulysses made that.
He made that." Like,
right, exactly.
Or oh, I know the people who do this work, like from this studio. Like,
I know this production
I know
team.
It's this guy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. No, yeah, and that's sort of like the third segment is talking about, you know, creatives in our community, people like you said, who we find inspiration from, who we'd like to collaborate with. Where do we want to see our community of creatives in Chicago? Because recently I was having a conversation with a fellow colleague, and something that sort of stuck out to me the most was that he said, here in Chicago especially, everyone's doing their own thing, and it's less likely. And it wasn't just him. There was a previous podcast that we had sponsored, and the creative said the same thing. He said, a lot of people just stick to their own lane, and which is cool. Everybody, you know, should do their own thing.
Everyone has to be their own person.
But we're right, absolutely, and be their own individual, their own artist. But at the same time, where is that sense of community? Because I feel like we have one, but it's not solidified, right? Similarly, like when I take pictures for a fashion week or runway or whatnot, Chicago still isn't technically considered a fashion capital like LA, Miami, or New York, right?
Yeah.
And likewise, when you think of Hollywood and those type of productions, sometimes Chicago doesn't come to mind. Obviously, yes, a bunch of films have been filmed out here in Chicago. The recent Batman, a lot of Christopher Nolan movies. You know, Chicago is definitely on the map. But as far as like smaller creators, influencers, artists like ourselves, I feel like that community is very scarce. And I feel like this is definitely a good opportunity to continue to give a pulse to that community, right?
Yeah.
And
because I know a few of those like bigger content creators and those people actually doing things in Chicago, but like you said, they're very, I wouldn't say in their own lane, but you can tell that, you know, they're traveling, they're doing other things. And, you know, It's very hard to stay within the community once you've gotten to a certain like stage in your career.
Where you're constantly traveling for production.
You're everywhere,
No, yeah. And yeah, once you've reached that level, obviously it's hard to stay put. But no, I think it's super important. For instance, we were very lucky to have a booth at ClickCon last year or the year before? The year before. Yeah, we didn't do it last year. And I think that's when I really felt that sense of community, although it was a little bit everywhere. You had photojournalists, you had wedding classes, you had boudoir, you had different sets, different vendors. Your typical, you know, photography convention vendors, I feel. There's definitely a lot of room for improvement. But it felt very photo-based, not very video-based. A couple of the classes that we went to, actually, in between...
were based on film, videos.
Right. Do you remember the guy's name?
Oh, I forget his name.
Paul, right? No.
I don't remember.
He's worked on numerous movie sets, or TV sets, more TV sets.
Yeah.
I know Vampire Diaries was one of them, and a couple shows, and it was fantastic. I love the course, but I wish it was more so like the B&H, not build, guild?
Guild?
As a guild? The B&H Expo, that one I did go to in New York last year, which was super cool. They did have a proper stage, a panel of speakers, and it was set like more so like auditorium wise. And then you had, you know, your trade show floor, like where we were and at ClickCon. That one, it just felt, well, obviously B&H is a much larger company, right? ClickCon is just a convention run by, shout out Sherry. She's super great, but yeah, very little sponsors. I don't know. I think there's a lot of room for improvement there. But no, overall, it was such a great experience. And I feel like that was, going full circle, I feel like that was my first sense of like community. But I've noticed then going to like Fashion Week, there's different communities
within each other. Yeah.
within each other, you know. And I thought, I need to find my own, or at least continue to help create one, because I feel like there's really a lack of one, you know.
Yeah.
When it comes to working with other creatives, who comes to, or who have you worked with most, and who do you want to work with as far as like creative wise?
Who do I want to work with?
Yeah.
That's a tough one. I don't think I really set myself on working with someone just yet, you know, because I've been working pretty hard where I am right now.
Yeah.
So it's hard on like to get free time to go out and find another creative who also has the free time to do these things.
Right.
I do have my close friends that they always, you know, they do have the time, like, hey, let's go out and do this and this and that, or fly this drone somewhere, and like that's easy, but really trying to find a different creative is tough. You know, I think, but I've seen a few people on Instagram that I'd really like to meet, more so of on the either drone side, or of course I do videography, so maybe like people who do more of like documentary style is really cool. I think what I've always liked, because I started off as photography, was like Paul Nickel.
Oh,
was that right? That's his name, right?
Paul Nickel. Yeah,
Paul Nickel. Yeah. He goes to travels the world, takes pictures of polar bears and everything. Yeah. He was super cool. I think that's what really got me. Like, he does more of like a documentary style, takes a picture and then
tells a story.
And that's where I think it all really started, and that's where I want to kind of progress to in the future, which would be really fun.
That's very good. Yeah, that kind of answered my second question for you. So, because I did want to sort of interview each other. Going back to that original podcast that you were on for Radio Rejects, you did say you started off with photo, but then you transitioned to video. Yeah, photo was just a little too easy for you.
It wasn't easy. I don't think it's ever easy. It didn't give you that
satisfaction.
Yeah, it didn't give me the satisfaction as when you get to film somebody. And then when you film somebody, there's like just so many things afterwards that you know that you can do to the video to like enhance it. And then with the photo, it's like, oh, I took this photo, and if I mess up, it's going to be really hard to fix it. I mean, same with video, but with video, it's like, oh, there's
so many more elements.
There's so many more, like, oh, I just filmed this guy at a concert, and then it's like, oh, I can transition into this, or I can put this effect on them, and or do a certain I don't know, like an overlay,
transition,
change the color.
Effect.
Yeah, it's a lot of things, a lot of different
sound design too.
Yeah, a lot of different elements that you can throw into it to spice it up. You know, make it more appealing.
That's true.
Well, I know with the photo, it's like you want to assert. You already know the way you want it.
Yeah.
And with a video, it's like, oh, you can switch it up and change things however you want it to be whenever. So it's fun.
When you were doing photos, what did you start off photographing? Because I was, if I remember correctly, your friend had told you to get into photography, and you bought a camera.
No, the first time I picked up a camera was because my friend had one.
Okay.
And then we were going to Spring Awakening.
No way.
I think it was either 2015.
15. Okay.
And then I just took the camera and started taking photos there.
Nice.
And then from there, I just started going to parties, concerts.
Event photography.
And I started doing photos that way. They weren't the best, but they were okay.
We all start somewhere, bro.
Yeah.
No, trust me. My photography was absolute garbage. I was taking pictures of my dogs at home, my friend's pool table, a lot of flowers, a lot of birds, suburban homes. I went to parks, tried nature photography. I shot some deer with a 24-70, so I didn't know what I was doing.
When I use my 70 to 200, I go out. If I can, I'll shoot some animals if I see them. It's fun.
Nice. Yeah.
But you really need a 300 millimeter or 400. Even with the 200, it's tough.
Yeah. No, yeah. And likewise, my journey was a little bit similar to yours. A lot of times I stole my dad's camera in high school. I would take it to school. There was no photography classes. Went to JJC, did film photography. And I was forced to go to the city to get film supplies. And that's why I'll die on that hill for analog. Yeah, I scan it and just put it on the internet. You might as well just take a digital. But that's why I love street photography, because it's still similar to that storytelling feeling. And although the process is different, I feel like the process for film is a little bit more rewarding. But yeah, likewise, my photos were really bad, dude. And then I started doing street photography in the city, and now you see my page, it's just nothing but
all
that.
street photography. I mean, to me, it's all the same because you just all click a button, right?
Wow. You went there this episode. We're going to talk about it in a separate episode, you bastard. All you hit is a red button. It's
All you hit
no
is a
different.
button, you know. All you hit is the button and you're done, you know.
Yeah, true.
You know, with filming, you got to do a little more than that, you know.
You hit a button.
You hitting the button, but then you got to keep it going, and you know, you got to keep moving, you know.
True. No, likewise, I feel like with video, I transitioned. So right after college, I had dropped out. I started working at a corporate job. And that's when I had jumped on the trend of daily vlogs. And man, was it so rewarding. I don't know. There was something about it. It was definitely tolling. Mornings, I would wake up at 4 a.m. just to get those videos out, you know, daily. And they weren't the most creative. They weren't different angles. I did some transitions, like some whip pans. Like I had the traditional Gorilla Pod, like Casey Neistat had, camera in front of me. And then I would just like drop it. And then when I picked up where I left off on the previous statement, I would just whip it back up, and there's the transition, right? To save myself some work. And it was always just talking about buying new gear, going to work, going home. It wasn't anything productive because at that time I wasn't really forcing myself to do any photography projects or video projects for that instance. But it's funny that you say you want to go to documentary video, because I definitely see you as such, especially with the work that you've done and you've released. I know currently you do more so like small business restaurant type of videos right now, but you've also continued to do like events and stuff. But
on my free time, I do you know, events. I've done like hyperlapses, and then also just a bunch of, I wouldn't say crazy drone work, but drone work. You know,
you got good drone work.
That I do. I've dabbled in FPV. I haven't really posted anything that I've done with FPV, but I also do know how to fly FPVs, so that's really fun too.
No, that's pretty cool. Yeah, because I bought a drone in 2014. It was a white Mavic 3, and I flew it a couple times. I realized I can't get the images that I wanted because I needed an ND filter. Yeah, I didn't have the money to buy ND filters, and I didn't want to. So that was my extent of drones. I never got my license. I didn't know you needed one.
To make money, yes, you do need one.
Yeah. And I remember I got in trouble one time because I flew it. You know that flamingo structure, that red structure in Chicago? Yeah. Turns out that's federal property. You can't be flying drones.
Can't be flying, yeah.
And I didn't know that, and I ignored all the warnings on my control. I plugged in my phone, and a cop came out, and I was like...
Right away, yeah.
They said, I was like, I don't think this drone stuff's for me, bro.
Put it right back down.
Right. And I actually just gave it to my brother-in-law because he does drone as well, which is pretty cool. But no, I feel like the extent of my work is just strictly photography. I feel like that's my artistry, I guess. The black and white, the film, the street photography. And then my work, I feel very lucky that I have this as sort of a vessel to have a show with you now.
Correct.
Also do projects as far as products go, fashion shoots, and that's like work, you know. And I've been lucky enough to find that balance between art and work, because like you said, since we're working so much here, it's hard to find that free time. But when I do have that free time, I don't mind throwing on some headphones, putting on some music, walking around the streets, and just taking some pictures and be, quote unquote, an artist.
An artist, yeah.
So hopefully, you know, going forward in these episodes, we get to do some shows together. We are going to be running the shows, whether I'm the host or Ulysses is the host. There's going to be a few shows where we run the shows together, but a lot of times it's either going to be me, your host Enrique, or
me, your host, Ulysses.
If you're a photographer, a videographer, a creative in the Chicagoland area, feel free to message us or give us a call, and we'll get you on the show.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the XR Podcast. Until next time, peace.
I am late. My wife got here at 50.